Who's actually going to get the most out of a premium OLED TV, and who should walk away before they spend a big chunk of change? Is the price justified for someone who just watches a bit of Netflix and the occasional sports game, or does it really shine for the cinephile who wants the absolute best picture at home? Those are the questions that keep most shoppers up at night, especially when the market is flooded with glossy ads and endless best-of lists. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video, I'm going to break down the real-world experience of the LG 55-inch class OLED evo C4 series, point out where it actually delivers value, and flag the hidden trade-offs that can bite you later. Let's start with the setup. Unboxing the C4 feels like a small ceremony. The box is big, the TV is protected by a thin cardboard frame, and the magic remote is tucked away in its own sleeve. You'll need a wall mount or a sturdy TV stand. There's no built-in stand that can handle a 55-inch OLED without wobbling, so plan for a wall mounting kit if you want a clean look. The first thing I noticed during installation was the weight. It's lighter than a comparable LED because the OLED panel doesn't have a backlight, but the screen itself is still a solid 55 pounds, so you'll want a second pair of hands for the wall mount. Once it's up on the wall, the first impression is the picture. The OLED evo panel gives you that classic self-lit pixel advantage. Each pixel can turn completely off for true blacks, which makes dark scenes feel almost three-dimensional. In a dimly lit living room, a horror movie's shadows hold detail you rarely see on a standard LCD. The brightness booster does help a lot in brighter rooms. On a sunny afternoon the image stays punchy, though you'll still see a slight washout if you sit directly opposite a window. That's not a deal breaker for most households, but if you plan to use the TV as your main daytime screen for gaming or sports, you might still want some curtains or a light filtering film. Now, the everyday usability. The C4 runs on LG's WebOS platform, which has been refined over several generations. The interface feels snappy, especially after the AI Processor Gen7 does its thing in the background. Apps launch in a second or two, and the AI upscaling makes lower-resolution content look respectable. I tested it with a 1080p YouTube video of a travel vlog, and the AI turned it into something that looked closer to 4K, with sharper edges and less noise. The built-in Alexa works for basic voice commands, turning the TV on or off, adjusting the volume, or searching for a title, but you'll quickly discover that it's more of a convenience than a full-blown smart home hub. If you already have an Alexa ecosystem, the integration is smooth. If you rely on Google Assistant, you'll end up juggling two voice assistants. One of the biggest selling points of the C4 is the 144Hz refresh rate paired with Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. For movie nights, Dolby Vision adds a punch of color depth that makes HDR scenes pop, and the Atmos support delivers an immersive sound field if you have a compatible soundbar. I paired the TV with a mid-range soundbar that supports Atmos, and the overhead effects in an action film felt surprisingly enveloping. For gamers, the 144Hz panel combined with low input lag, around 10 milliseconds after enabling game mode, makes fast-paced shooters feel responsive. The only downside is that you need an HDMI 2.1 source to fully exploit the 144Hz at 4K. Most current consoles are limited to 120Hz, so you won't see the full 144Hz bandwidth unless you're using a PC with a capable GPU. Let's talk about the practical strengths that matter after the purchase. First, the picture quality is genuinely next level for a 55-inch size. If you're someone who watches a lot of cinematic content, think indie films, Netflix originals, or Blu-ray releases, the OLED evo's deep blacks and vibrant colors are a daily treat. Second, the AI upscaling and processing keep older content looking fresh, which is great if your library is a mix of 4K and lower resolution material. Third, the Magic Remote's point-and-click functionality is more useful than it sounds. You can point at a menu item from across the room and have it selected instantly, which is a real time saver when you're juggling multiple devices. On the flip side, there are a few practical weaknesses you should know before you click buy. Burn and risk, while often exaggerated, is still a concern with OLED panels. If you habitually leave a static logo like a news ticker or a game HUD on the screen for hours every day, you could see ghosting after a few months. LG does include pixel shift and a log luminance limiter, but the safest approach is to use screensavers or vary your content. Another issue is the brightness ceiling. Even with the booster, the panel tops out around 700 nits, which is respectable but not as bright as premium.